I'm Wendy Stephenson and I'm Voscur's Chief Executive. I've just taken over as the Voscur rep to the Bristol Partnership from Simon Bale, who was our elected rep. We've been asked to send either our Chief Executive or our Chair to the partnership now, so I attended my first partnership meeting this week. Helen Ball presented a report from the State of the City Conference, a brief evaluation report, and told us that there was a lot more information that had been gathered from workshops that took place on the day that would feed into the work of the partnership boards in the future, but that wasn't available to us at the meeting this week. The next item on the agenda was a review of the progress to establish the partnership boards. So, we were told that the partnership boards were well on their way to being established. Chairs had been identified for each of the partnership boards, although it wasn't clear how those chairs had been identified, nor was it clear how the partnership boards themselves were being established. And one of the Bristol Partnership members, the BDA representative, asked for an explanation as to how the boards were being set up. Helen Ball was then asked to prepare a paper on how the boards were being set up and how people could become involved in the boards. I informed the group that Voscur had written to identified lead officers and asked for meetings with either lead officers or identified chairs, and begun to negotiate places for voluntary and community sector representation through Voscur to the boards, and we had made some progress there. Each partnership board will report on a rotating basis to the Bristol Partnership Executive Board, and partnership board chairs were asked for more information around outcomes and activities of each board. The first board to report will be the Children and Young People's Board, which will report in January, and we'll look at successes for the board and areas where the board needs some support and help. I asked why not all of the partnership boards had equalities, community cohesion and tackling poverty as part of their delivery framework, and the reason given was that these boards are still in development and they would be added eventually. We then moved on to talk about local area agreement targets, and it was noted that some targets had been carried forward from the previous local area agreement, and there were some new targets which had been negotiated this last year. It's a mixed picture. There are some successful targets, where there's some amber and green targets, but there are some in the red that need some more support and action. Indicators that have been identified as well below target will be are reviewed by a performance challenge group that comprises members of the Bristol Partnership. There is an escalation procedure so that when these targets have been identified, they are looked at and reviewed, but the Bristol Partnership Executive Board doesn't get to look at those targets until 9 months after they have been initially identified. There was a discussion around whether that was adequate and how we work together as partners to do something jointly about rescuing or helping underperforming targets. We talked about where was the creative thinking within the partnership, and that led us back to a discussion around the fact that partnership boards will report to the executive every meeting, so there will be an opportunity for executive board members to be involved in discussions around targets. A report was presented on the recession and the impact of the recession on Bristol. No particularly concrete actions were identified at this stage, although we will be talking about it again. The report was written from the perspective of the council, and other partners were asked to think about how they could contribute to attacking the recession. I asked for support for advice services, as I think they will be really important, are really important, but will be particularly important during this time. The next meeting of the partnership is the 22nd of January, and the agenda will look at comprehensive area assessment. There'll be a briefing on that, a report from the Children and Young People's Board, a report on Destination Bristol, local area agreement reward targets, and an update from partners.